Hey everyone, and welcome back to Life and Bullshit. Today I want to talk about something that every single one of us will experience at some point in our lives: loss. Not the kind of loss where you misplace your keys or lose a job. I mean, the kind of loss that changes you, the kind that divides your life into two chapters: before and after. As I'm recording this, we're approaching June 15th, which marks 14 years since my best friend passed away. 14 years, and yet somehow there are moments when it feels like it happened yesterday. I can still remember things about him that feel crystal clear, certain conversations, certain memories, and just certain feelings. And that's the strange thing about grief. Time moves forward, but part of us stays behind. And I wanted to make this episode because grief is one of those things that we all experience, but we don't always talk about it honestly. I mean, we talk about funerals, condolences, we talk about being strong. We don't always talk about what happens: the months, the years, the random Tuesday afternoon when a memory hits you out of nowhere. The songs, the smells, the places. Um, the moments when you realize someone is missing all over again. So today I just want to have a conversation about grief, not as an expert, just as a human being who's lived through it, as we all have or will. So my experience with loss is when my friend died, I don't think I handled it the way I expected I would. Well, I'm not sure. I mean, that's probably not entirely true. Um, we were very close, so the more I think about it, I mean, it makes sense because I went into a period of shutdown. And if you listen to my podcast before, you've probably heard me talk about the nervous system. Um, and when something feels too overwhelming, our minds sometimes don't know what to do with it. So we numb out, we disconnect, we survive. And that's what grief looked like for me. At first, it was shock, then sadness, anger, numbness, and then sadness again. And somewhere along the way, I realized grief isn't this neat little process where you complete one stage and move to the next. It's messy, it's unpredictable, it's exhausting. And some days you're okay, and some days you're just not. And sometimes years later, you're suddenly crying over something you thought you had already processed. Um, Most of us have heard about the 5 stages of grief: denial, anger, bargaining, depression, and then acceptance. But the problem is that grief doesn't usually happen in a straight line or necessarily in that, order. It's more like a tangled ball of yarn. You might feel acceptance one day and anger the next. And from my experience, you might feel fine for 6 months and then have a breakdown in the grocery store because the song comes on the speaker. So grief doesn't follow rules. And I think one of the hardest things people do to themselves is judge how they're grieving. They think, shouldn't I be over this by now? Why am I still crying? Why can't I move on? But grief isn't a problem to solve, it's a reflection of love. The deeper the connection, the deeper the grief. One thing nobody prepared me for was how much loss changes you, not just emotionally, but fundamentally. You become aware of that life is fragile. You realize tomorrow isn't guaranteed. You stop assuming you'll always have more time. Sometimes that's terrifying, but sometimes it's also what wakes us up. Because loss has a way of forcing us to look at what matters, how we're spending our time, who we're taking for granted. I don't think grief only takes from us, it also reshapes us in a way. Not because we wanted it to, but because it has to. And one thing I noticed is that grief makes other people uncomfortable. Right after a loss, everybody understands. People check on you, they bring food, they send messages. Life moves on, and sometimes it feels like you're the only one still carrying it. A year later, 5 years later, 14 years later. People might think enough time has passed, but grief doesn't work on a calendar. Love doesn't disappear because a certain number of years has gone by. So if you ever felt guilty for missing someone, please hear this. There is nothing wrong with you. Missing someone isn't a sign you're stuck, it's a sign they mattered. I wish I could tell you there's a secret formula because there isn't, but there are things that help. Talking about them, sharing stories, looking at old pictures, and just allowing yourself to cry. Laugh at the memories. Bring around people who understand, or being around people who just understand, and sometimes simply allowing yourself to feel whatever you're feeling without trying to fix it. It's about making room for sadness, making room for joy, making room for memories, making room for life to continue while still carrying the people we've lost. You know, for anyone listening right now, maybe you're grieving someone who passed away. Maybe you're grieving a relationship. Maybe you're grieving a version of yourself that no longer exists. But whatever your loss is, I just want you to know you're not alone. You don't have to have it all figured out. You don't have to be strong every second. And you don't have to rush healing. Because grief is one of the most human experiences we have. And while none of us would choose it, it connects us. And every single one of us knows what it feels like to love. And eventually, every single one of us knows what it feels like to lose. So, as June 15th approaches, I'll be thinking about my friend. I'll probably smile at some memories and cry at others. And honestly, after 14 years, I've learned that that's okay. Because grief isn't something I carry because I can't let go. It's something I carry because my friend mattered. Thank you for listening. And if you're missing somebody today, this episode is for you. Take care of yourself. I'll talk to you next time on Life and Bullshit, and you've got this.